Hi, my name is Fatima Goss-Graves, and I proudly serve as the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center. I also proudly serve as a leader in the Executive Directors of Color Collective, Relationships, and Resilience. We are a gathering of national field advocacy, policy, and capacity building organization.
We came together in 2018 to build relationships. And those relationships turned into deep commitment between leaders of 17 organizations led by a dynamic group of Black, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander leaders of color, because we want to see each other and our constituents flourish.
And when women and people of color are in these type of positions, what is possible is completely different. So I'm so incredibly proud of that, that we were there for our people, and we never, ever, ever took our eyes off our long-term vision of ballot measures being a tool for liberation to build power and to radically imagine what is possible when we center Black and Brown and Asian American and Native folks. We never, ever lost sight of that because we knew what was necessary in order to actually put issues that were going to drive out voters to this year.
And I know my fellow EDs of color are taking on the world. Many of us stepped into organizations that were falling apart in some way, either because of the programming was falling apart or there wasn't a culture that was being reflective of our values. And we came in, and just over the last year, over the last couple of years, had to completely transform our organizations into what they are today.
We stand for power building, and we want our people to not just survive in these times, but thrive.
This moment was years in the making, right? And you can't understand 2020 without understanding the full arc. So in 2014, when courageous young Black folks in Ferguson, Missouri inspired us all, they sent a wave that we're still experiencing right now. And, it's become commonplace, almost cliche for people to say Black Lives Matter, but that phrase was very, very controversial. Now, in 2020 was a reckoning for all of us. COVID-19, the secondary impacts of COVID-19 on our economy and our society, the reckoning around Black lives due to the murder of George Floyd, Tony McDade, Breonna Taylor. It created a crisis, it created interlocking crises. And during crises, these are decision points. And we saw a lot of establishment folks choose the safe decision. We chose to align deeply with the chaotic and beautiful forces of our movement and create an alliance that unlocked all of this energy that we now see in the ballot box. We electoralized our movement. And I often say that these past few years has radicalized liberals and electoralized radicals, and that's a good thing.
This election cycle was a test, and we rose to the occasion. Yet again, it proved that investing resources, time, and capacity in people of color is a winning strategy. And doing so at scale allows us to move from the margins to the center of victory for our nation and for future generations.
The most important thing for the groups in our network was to make sure our people were safe and that they were okay. And so quickly, folks shut the organizations down. We figured out how to work remotely. And in many ways, we just continue to invest in the innovation of young people to find solutions for the challenges of our times. Of course, that meant things like training folks up for digital organizing, scaling our communications work, shifting tactics from face-to-face to growing text programs, call programs, relational programs, mail programs.
We were there within weeks on the ground in Florida, in New Mexico, in Missouri, working with our partners in those communities to defend access to the ballot, because we knew back in March that the other side is going to use this pandemic, weaponize it against our communities to strip us of our political power.
The powerhouse organizing in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada have come from the community and works with the community. Post-election narratives are already beginning to harden around progressive versus centrist policies, but they are again excluding the turnout and work of AAPI voters who, alongside Black, Latinx, and Native voters, changed the course of our democracy.
We decided that democracy wasn't just going to be about voting. Democracy is about everything we have done every day in between election days to build the power to make this moment possible.
We are at the precipice of transformation, and we have been able to lead millions of people through the most dire of circumstances.
I think what you will see from this year and what you have seen from previous years is that we are planting seeds in all of these important communities that have already started to grow. You know, if you look at, staffers from 2018, the 2018 cycle, we have people that are now leading as EDs in their own right, C3 organizations in their states, including the C3 tables in 2 states. You have in Ohio, 3 African Americans that became elected officials, right? Organizers becoming elected officials. That's something that we all could use a little bit more of.
This year, I am so proud of the fact that we came together and we registered more than 2.3 million voters. We had set out at the beginning of the year to contact at least 30 million voters, and we more than doubled that goal. And after COVID, we were able to shift, and so far, we have reached more than 65 million voters. We ran the largest election protection program in our history. We moved $10 million to the ground.
Our people, Black, Indigenous, people of color, are unstoppable against the greatest odds in places like Georgia, in places like Alabama, in places like Florida and Texas, organized en masse. And still, the maps did change. But that's by design, right? We are unstoppable. We have deep momentum to govern, and there is a hunger in this country from our people to radically transform our systems of power.
We have a lot of healing to do, no doubt. We actually have so much work to do to heal our collective society from the traumas that we've experienced, not just in the past year, but for the past hundreds of years. But that doesn't mean that we give up.
Because the truth of the matter is, the other story from this election that is present and in our face fiercely is that among every group, including women, it is race and grappling with our deep history of racism that we must tackle.
But as leaders, we are up to the task. We believe that we will win. Winning to us looks like building the country of our dreams.
We're about organizing and power building for the long term. And so as we think about 2024 and we think about what is required for us to start shifting the tide in this country to fully build power for people of color, we need to put more people of color in positions of power that look like us in all systems, on all the power structures, not just in office, but at all the power structures that actually matters to our lives.
So there is no return to politics as usual. There is no return to the quote unquote normal that never actually worked for people of color, for low-income people in the United States, right? So we will move forward an aggressive and bold executive agenda and an equally aggressive and bold legislative agenda. Here's the thing. Our future is not actually guaranteed.
If we want to make a transformative shift in 2024, we need to make sure that traditional campaigns and mainstream political infrastructure radically change the way that they want to talk to and invest in our communities. They cannot continue to rely on cold calling and texting people to vote the way that they have been. We should be consistently building deep relationships with people in our communities so that we're collectively setting the agenda and ready to vote together in 2024. This is going to take time, translated materials, and workers with the cultural and language competencies to effectively organize our communities. We've been doing that work. Our communities have the expertise to do this work. We just need the investment now, year-round, to make sure that we can continue to build stronger organizations and stronger ground game for the next 4 years.
Let's take a moment to breathe, to center and express our gratitude, to love ourselves and to love one another, to acknowledge that we are our most important gift in this work. It took hundreds of organizations. It took thousands of volunteers. It took millions of dollars and tens of millions of community members working together to create the change that we want to see in this world. And our collective energy is power.
I'm the father of a beautiful Black boy. What I hope for him, through his eyes, is a world where he could be freer than I ever was as a Black boy. The world where his identity as a Black boy doesn't signal threat, right? And therefore provides a open pasture for his dreams. That's what I'm fighting for.
What I want my daughter to know is that being a Black girl is powerful, and that her mother fought so that she can be free, and that the trauma that she has felt in her life, that the women before us have felt in our life, we are tearing that down and we're building something new. And that there's a whole group of folks that are fighting for her, and fighting that she can be the beautiful, resilient, brilliant girl that she is, and that anything is possible. Whatever she dreams, it's possible.
Black people in this country deserve so much more than to just not be killed by the police. Our immigrant brothers and sisters deserve so much more than to just not have children separated at the border. That's not freedom. We deserve all the things. Let me say it again. We deserve all the things. We deserve healthcare and education and housing and an environment that doesn't poison us. We deserve a country where all of us have the freedom to thrive. And that's what we determined through this election. That's what we determined through our organizing. That's what we determined as we built power, one block at a time, one person at a time, one neighborhood at a time, until the impossible became possible. We need people to know that this moment has just begun. It's not ending.
We are the Executive Directors of Color, Relationships, and Resilience Collective.
Together we build.
Together we transform.
Together, we will win.